So, my last video about episode 5 was a no spoilers video, meaning no book spoilers. So, it's safe for people who have not read the Wheel of Time books, but this video, not so much. I'm going all in on spoilers, all the way through to Towers of Midnight at least, with vague spoilers kind of going through to the end of the series. So, if you have not read and finished the Wheel of Time series, I do not recommend this video. But if you have, let's go.
Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, let's be nerdy. Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, babe. Let's be nerdy, let's be nerdy, babe.
So, as I did last time, I'm going to break this down plot line by plot line instead of going scene by scene. I'll begin with Matt and Rand, move on to Egwene and Perrin, and then head to the whole White Tower and Stepin plot. It's easier for me that way when I'm writing my notes and organizing my thoughts. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos about this episode, you know that this one was not my favorite. One of the reasons being that this one has a lot of things that felt like they felt forced. I could feel the writers like forcing lines into the characters' mouths, like forcing them to do and say things that don't feel organic. And one of those things happens almost immediately with Rand and Matt. Rand looks up at Dragonmount and says that he thinks he's seen it before, which, what? Like, unless Rand is experiencing channeling sickness, which we haven't heard anything about, so I don't know if channeling sickness is going to be a part of the show. But unless that's what's happening, he knows that he has not been to Tarvalon before, which means that he knows that he has not seen this mountain before. Which means if it looks like something he's seen before, then it has to be some weird, freaky, creepy magic stuff, and I can't imagine him saying anything like that out loud so casually. Like, that's not a casual thing to say that, oh, I think I've seen this very distinctive mountain before that I can't possibly have ever seen before. That's admitting to something that I can't imagine Rand wanting to admit. Anyway, they go into Tarvalon, and I do really like how Tarvalon looks. Like, it's busy, but it's clean and orderly, which feels like the sort of city that you would have if you had a city managed by Aes Sedai. It's also very diverse. You can see multiple ethnicities, multiple styles of dress. It's great. You also hear Fane's whistle, which, okay, loud motorcycle, sorry. So we hear the whistle, and then we actually see Fane. In Shadar Logoth, we heard the whistle, but we only saw a shadow, but we didn't actually see Fane, so was Fane there? Like, is the whistle always an indication that he's there? I think that's what the implication is, which is very interesting to me. That Fane was in Shadar Logoth. That is kind of cool. It's obviously going to be very different from the books. Fane doesn't look like he's been dragged around by Trollocs or sleeping in cook pots, so we're getting a very different trajectory from him. I'm really quite intrigued. I did also really feel for Matt in this episode, and I thought it was interesting that they're showing something to us that we learn about after the fact in the books, that Matt is losing parts of his memory. He doesn't remember what happened at the farm. He only remembers seeing the dead body of the little girl, but he doesn't remember what happened before that. It's only one incident, but I think it's enough to set the precedent later when, we find out that he has all these holes in his memory. I do wonder, though, if next episode we aren't, if we're going to actually see full dagger Matt. Like, we saw him lash out at a little boy in that first scene, and then he lashed out at Nynaeve. But we didn't see him go all creepy, that pretty Nynaeve speech he gives at the Queen's Blessing. It gives me the creeps. Goosebumps, like skin crawly creeps. And I wonder if we still have something like that coming up. Because right now he just seems sick, but he doesn't seem dangerous. Also, random thought. Does Rand know that he took this dagger from Shadar Logoth? Like, he's seen it, but he saw it in the farmhouse, and that was a pretty stressful situation, so I don't think he got a good look at it. And it might not have registered to him that there's anything special about that dagger. I mean, everybody in this world has a belt knife, right? So he might not be questioning the fact that Matt has one and might not have taken a really good look at it and seen, where the heck did you get that dagger with that big ruby on it? He might not have seen it. Does he know? Okay, and the only other thing to talk about in this plotline is Loial. And I've talked about Loial in my previous video, so I will be brief here. The actor, Hamad Animashan, he is doing amazing. The way Loial sounds, the way he moves, that feels perfect. the way he looks. I'm gonna have to get used to it. I think I'm just gonna have to get past it. But it's odd to me. He looks both too strange and not strange enough. Like, it's a weird combination of, he looks too human, but also too weird. All right. And his meeting with Rand felt too rushed. I know it can't go on like it is in the books, because Loial's verbiosity would not translate well to screen, but I could not buy into their friendship in the one scene that they took the time to show us here. Okay, moving on to Perrin and Egwene. Oh man, the storyline. Yeah, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I don't like the White Cloaks. Okay, we begin with the Tinkers forming a human shield to protect Egwene and Perrin, and this moment, I know what it is, right? I know it's to show us that despite their pacifism, the Tinkers aren't cowards, and I do appreciate them showing us this side of the Tinkers earlier on, because I don't think we get this in the books until much later. But that moment, it felt too on the nose to me. I've used that expression before, but it applies. It applies again. It just felt like oh yeah, no, they're gonna do the arm linking thing. Like, I don't know. On the nose is the best way I can think to describe the feeling that I had at this moment. It also turned out to be pointless, which I kind of found funny, and I don't think I was supposed to. Okay, to the main point. They capture Egwene and Perrin, and then there is this horrible scene where they have stripped Egwene and they are scrubbing her with like really rough scrub brushes, and they take out her braid and they even clean under her nails, and then they put her in white. And even the look on the men's face as they are doing this to her, like, they look disgusted by the fact that, you know, she is so filthy, that just her as a person, and they must make her as clean as possible. The feeling I got from this was that the White Cloaks are sort of the inverse or the equivalent of the Red Aja, or like the Leandrin version of the Red Aja that we saw in the first episode's Cold Open, right? The White Cloaks are a mirror of them. Especially when Perrin was brought in, and he was fully clothed and filthy, but they hadn't felt the need to put him through this humiliating ritual. It felt very targeted, and I think this is intentional, right? You've got the Red Aja, and okay, first of all, I do hope they don't go all Slytherin, you know, with the Reds, and have them all be evil, or at the very least, just bad people. I'd like to see some nuance here, because the Reds really are doing the most necessary job that an Aes Sedai can do, and they get shit on by everybody for it, like both in world and in the fandom. Everybody just hates them for doing this thing that somebody has to do. But okay, we have this one representation of their faction who is a misandrist, right? Leandrin, in that Cold Open, she expressed clear disgust at the idea of men touching something that she feels some ownership over. And I think the White Cloaks are the inverse of that. Or specifically, again, like Leandrin is the specific version of the Reds, Valda is the specific version of the White Cloaks. His speech about accessing the One Power and how it must be something from the dark, he ends it by saying that it's his job to stamp it out, woman by woman. In this world, there are men who can channel, but he does not care about them. He only wants to take this power from women. And I feel like that's a very deliberate choice of words, both by Valda and by the writers. Okay, we also, in this plotline, we get a good look at Egwene channeling multiple weaves at once. Something that is, according to the books, I don't know if they're going to have this be in the show, but in the books, it's a very high-level skill. And she seems to do it instinctively here, which was cool. I also liked her grabbing the rings as she ran out, because that was going to piss Valda off, and that makes me happy. And then Perrin. We got to talk about Perrin. First of all, he finally confesses to someone, to Egwene, what happened, and I'm glad that we got to see it. Although, you know, for the sake of my Perrin, I wish that it hadn't happened like this. Obviously, I do hope that my previous thought about this turns out to be right. That Egwene keeps this secret, because it's one of the things I did always appreciate about her. Like, even after she hurt my feelings in the later books, which, like, she literally, anyway, whatever. That she knew this thing about Perrin. She had this secret of his, but she also knew that it was a secret, like his secret to tell, and she never told anybody. I've always really liked their friendship, and I like the way it is playing out in the show as well. And then we get to see Perrin go full wolf boy, or like half wolf boy. I don't know. I don't know what the full trajectory of his whole wolf brother status is going to look like, but I liked how it was handled here. First of all, his eyes look super cool. I like the effect that they've got here. I don't know if they're going to have his eyes always be golden, or if they're only going to be golden when he's in connection with the wolves, but if they do that, like, second option, I think that's a smart idea, because having them constantly have this thing on Perrin's face, his eyes, like everybody's always looking at your eyes, that make him look not quite human, could create a bit of an uncanny valley effect. But also, it could be a way to communicate to us, like to the audience, that he is communicating with the wolves at any specific moment, right? Because it appears what they're going to do for wolf communication is just have Perrin sort of tell us what the wolves are saying somehow. So the golden eyes could be a cue for us to know that he is, like, whether or not he's speaking for himself or speaking for the wolves. Of course, this is all speculation, but those are my thoughts anyway. Okay, moving on to the White Tower storyline that actually begins outside of the tower. We have the funeral scene that happens right after the battle that ended the last episode. I have to say, I really did like how they were burying the Dragonsworn, like Loghain's followers, with as much dignity and respect as they buried their own dead. I just really like that touch. The ring! Okay, Steppen did something to the ring before he took it from Karine, and I remember there was an episode of The Dusty Wheel. I can't remember if it was an episode that I was on or one that I just watched, but people were analyzing pictures of the ring, and someone suggested that maybe the ring opens to be able to put the stone in, or take it out, I guess, and I think that's what he did here. I think he took out the green stone, so I guess it will be buried with Karine. The other thing to note in this moment, we get a braid, it's not a braid tug, but you can see Nynaeve here holding onto her braid and feeling it, like running her fingers over it to the bottom and sort of playing with the loose ends at the bottom. And maybe it's because I just made a braid watch video, but this moment sort of jumped out at me because this is Nynaeve holding onto her braid in a moment where she feels alone and insecure, like to remind herself of the community of women that she's a part of back home. She's doing the thing that she told Egwene to do in the first episode. Once we get to the tower, we have... Okay, this may actually be a big part of why this episode is lowest on my list. The main part of this storyline is about Steppen, right, the warder, and I'm just not invested in him as a character. I like him. I liked Karine, but this might be because I'm a book reader, right? I know they aren't important to the plot. Like, these are characters that were lifted from the prequel and placed in the story so they could be killed without fallout. I was not shocked when Karine died last episode, and I was not shocked when Steppen died in this episode. And it's not just the lack of shock, they are not the characters that I'm here to see, right? And just so much focus on Steppen in this episode, I couldn't get invested. And it's not like he wasn't acting well. Like, Peter Franzen was acting his ass off. But if you had asked me if I'd rather have watched an extra minute of Lan and Moiraine sitting in silence as they process their feelings, or hear Steppen and Maxim talk about their shitty dads, I would have picked watching Moiraine and Lan sit in silence for a minute. I'm just way more interested in that. But while I'm talking about that, why did half of those warders have shitty dads? Like, is there a point that I was missing there? Why... Like, two of them had really, really bad dads. Anyway, in this plotline, we also get an excellent stand-in for one of my favorite scenes from Eye of the World, the scene where Moiraine reveals to Nynaeve that she can channel. If you read that chapter, it's a 1, 2, 3 punch, right, for Moiraine here. Like, not intentionally, but 3 times in a row in that chapter, Moiraine does something that shakes Nynaeve's confidence. The first one Moiraine does without even being there. Nynaeve in that chapter recalls that some Trollocs had been chasing her and then given up chasing her to go after the boys. And that made her realize that Moiraine was right. That the Trollocs came to the Two Rivers to get the boys, which means that her whole purpose for having left the Two Rivers and tracked them was pointless. She can't take them back. Moiraine was right to take them away from Emond's Field. Then she catches up with Lan and Moiraine, and Moiraine tells Nynaeve that she can channel. Nynaeve tries to deny this, but she can't because Moiraine is right. Then Nynaeve tries to gain the high ground by accusing Moiraine of abandoning Egwene and Perrin, but Moiraine logics her way out of that one because, again, Moiraine is right, and again, Nynaeve has to concede. It's just 1, 2, 3 punches in a row, and it rocks Nynaeve's confidence, like to the point of she's in tears at the end of that chapter. It's a scene that I was accepting that we were gonna miss, right? But we didn't. Like obviously we didn't get the exact same scene, but this conversation that they have in the warders' quarters, it begins the same way with Nynaeve trying to posture and seem strong, but then Moiraine says out loud the stuff that Nynaeve is trying to hide, that she's scared, that she's alone, that she has realized that she's different and she can't go back to being who she was, that there's things that separate her from people that she loves, that her whole world has been turned upside down and she has no idea what to do about it. This scene is such a good replacement for that scene in Eye of the World that I think is it's a foundational scene to understanding Nynaeve and understanding her antagonism towards Moiraine and the Aes Sedai in general. It's so good, and you can see it on Nynaeve's face. Like, oh, Zoe Robbins, she's such a star. She looks so exposed, so vulnerable, like she's trying to hide in this moment, but she can't. I loved this scene. Okay, and while I'm talking about scenes I love, I gotta talk about the gay lady goodness that we got here. Like, oh my god, what the hell? Seriously, show, how are you making me want more of Liandrin? How is that possible? Kate Fleetwood, my god. Liandrin is so despicable in the books. I just want to punch her every time she's on the page. But here, I want to know her. I want to know her backstory. That tidbit about men not being kind to girls who show a spark of the power. That was intriguing. Just, what is this? And what was this face touch? Like, I actually had been kind of spoiled for something possibly happening between them because of the X-ray. Like, in the show, there's like X-ray extra information on the Amazon Prime site, and you do weird stuff with your remote. I've randomly found stuff sometimes, but you can see something on there that says that Liandrin and Moiraine were close in the past. And I read that, and my, gay lady brain just went, woo, but then I dismissed it because it's Liandrin. But then the scene... Were they a couple? I like this as a possibility. I'm going to tell you exactly what my brain did here when this happened. It went, oh my god, this is a big fuck you to the rudeness in the Wheel of Time Companion. Because, okay, I don't know if you've read the Wheel of Time Companion, mostly because I don't know who you are. I can't see you. That's not how YouTube works. But there's one entry in there that talks about Moiraine and Swan being pillow friends. I don't remember which entry it is, if it's Moiraine or Swan or pillow friends, whatever. But it talks about how they were pillow friends when they were novices. But then, for some stupid reason, it feels the need to say, but Moiraine was not a lesbian. And it just, to me, and not just me actually, I've heard other people say this too, it felt insulting. Like, no one thought she was a lesbian. She ends up with Tom, for crying out loud. But putting that sentence in there, it felt like, oh, we want to make sure that people don't think that she was like, ew, like a gay lady, like Elida or Galena. Like, man, no, Moiraine wasn't like those nasty women. So let's specify that she wasn't this thing that nobody thought she was. And when I saw this face touch, my brain went, she had 2 girlfriends in her past. Oh my god, they're making her a lesbian. Like, you, Wheel of Time Companion, your stupid, weird gay panic. Again, pure speculation, but man, would I love to be right about this. Okay, but speaking about gay lady goodness, there was another scene that some people were pointing out to me and expecting me to have been excited about, and that is Alanna and Moiraine on the bed. And okay, I will concede, they are in very cozy, snuggly positions, and I'd be totally into it. Like, build me that ship, because these are 2 hot ladies and they are in bed. But Moiraine! Get your boots off the bed! Oh my god, girl, that's nasty! Seriously, I was so distracted by the boots on the bed. Okay, speaking of Alanna, I think that they are merging Alanna and Morel, which makes sense, because, they're both involved in some weird warder bond stories that involve some consent issues, and I think merging them as characters makes a lot of sense. I did note the irony of having Lan bring up bonding another Aes Sedai to step in, and then it's even more ironic if I'm right, and they end up merging. Plus, having Moiraine bring up the idea of releasing a bond to Alanna, if Alanna, again, is Morel, this is all some pretty damn good foreshadowing. Okay, segueing from discussing the bond to actually seeing it. I talked about this in my no spoilers review, so again, I won't, go into it in too much detail here, but I loved the way that the bond between Lan and Moiraine was showcased in this episode. That moment I mentioned before where they sit in silence, it was beautiful. Like, I feel like I fully understood what they were both feeling and were needing from each other in that moment. And then the funeral. Okay. So as forced as I thought that the choice of, Lan as main mourner was, because I know other people have said that they bought into the friendship between Stephen and Lan. I just didn't. Like, they didn't sell it to me that they were really, really good friends. I just didn't feel it. But if I can move past how forced that choice felt, the way they acted it, and I'm gonna specifically mention Rosamund Pike here, the way she was able to show how she was reflecting Lan's grief and how then it was being reflected back and forth between them, it was, oh my God, just like chef's kiss. It was a masterclass in acting. Like, oh, it was so good. It was so good. The final scene I want to talk about, I don't have a segue to, so it's Rand and Nynaeve, and they're discussing Matt, and then they discuss Perrin and Egwene. Again, I'll just say this, Zoe Robbins is killing it. You can see both the determination and the lack of confidence on her face as she says, like, oh, we don't need Aes Sedai, I can heal him. She's determined to do it, but she's also not sure that she can. Her world has been rocked to its core, but she's still going to do everything she can do to try and help her people. It's fantastic. And then she tells a story about Egwene and breakbone fever. We get this version of the story in the books, but the first interesting change is that in the show, breakbone fever is not just painful, it's lethal. In the books, it's painful, but it's ultimately harmless. And I've always found it really interesting that RJ chose to make Nynaeve's first channeling experience be to heal something that didn't actually need healing. I'm honestly not sure why he made that choice. But okay, they've changed that in the show. Breakbone fever is something that apparently should have killed Egwene, but it didn't. It isn't overtly implied in the show that Nynaeve healed her. In fact, Moiraine says earlier that her first channeling was to heal the dying, and it's implied that means that, she's talking about what happened in the cave with Logain and the shrapnel or whatever. Although I suppose that also could apply to Egwene if Moiraine somehow knows about that. I don't know how she would know about that, though. I don't know. I kind of hope, though, that Nynaeve's first channeling experience isn't in response to, man, I'm falling for his dying, so I'll heal him for love, because I prefer the idea that Nynaeve is just so upset by illness and suffering in general that she instinctively heals, rather than she did it for the man that she loves, because that just feels, it reduces her a bit as a character, but I don't know, it's not like a deal breaker for me or anything. Oh, okay, because I know if I don't mention this, I will get a ton of comments asking about it. The Forsaken statues were cool. I have not counted them or analyzed them, though. The only ones I've pulled out and recognized in the 3 times that I've watched this episode were Asmodean, Grendel, and a Shamael, and I'm only guessing that this is a Shamael because of the way that Stephen says his name as he gestures towards it. Okay, that's it. These are my spoilery thoughts about episode 5. As I've said, this was my least favorite episode so far, but there are plenty of good moments and some amazing ones, and I've liked it a little bit more each time I've watched it. And I have a feeling I'll like it even more in the full context of the full season. So, let me know your thoughts. What spoilery things did you pull out of this episode? Let me know in the comments below. Or, you can come join the conversation on my Discord. I will link to that in the description below. And if you like my videos, like my content, and you want to support me, you can always check out my Patreon, which also linked in the description below. To my patrons, you are amazing. You are the wind beneath my wings. God, that's cheesy. But whatever. I love you. Thank you so much. And with that, I will end this here. So please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!